Hi everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this video is really all about that it's not all Downton Abbey. So I'm gonna start by answering some of your questions. So the first time I came to Mapperton, my husband somewhat prepared me in so much that he said, just so you know, we're going to kind of the family home, and I just want to let you know that it's kind of big. And I'm like, okay, well, I come from the land of supersized, so no problem with, you know, how big it is. I'm thinking, it's probably just like a big American house. I'm used to big, I'm used to supersize. But when we drove down the drive, what he didn't tell me was that it was a historic house. And it is, of course, very large historic house. These country houses were built with a plan to basically entertain, and everything happened in the house. He didn't tell me, though, that it was 500 years old. So the first part of the house was built in the 1540s, the library, the drawing room, the great chamber, that's where we have all the Tudor ceilings. He didn't tell me any of that. So getting my head around not only the history of the house, but of course, the history of his family. I learned about not only the first Earl of Sandwich, where the title firstly presented itself and was given to the family by Charles II. Edward Montagu was a great naval officer. He was head of the Admiralty, and he used to be fighting for the Cromwells. He was part of the Cromwellian army, and then switched sides and became a royalist. So he was very instrumental in the restoration, and he went on a secret mission, heading the ship over to Holland to pick up Charles II from exile and bring him back over to England, where Charles was crowned King of England. And that was the beginning of the restoration. So he was given the title of an Earl, and he was able to pick what he wanted to be Earl of. Sandwich at that period was a great naval port in Kent. And so he chose Sandwich, a port sort of that would distinguish him from everybody else. So he became the Earl of Sandwich. Now, of course, the favorite snack that we all eat, the sandwich, was named after my husband's ancestor, but that was much later on, and that was the fourth Earl of Sandwich. And the rumor is, I'm gonna give you the truth here, so listen closely. The rumor is that it was named a sandwich because the fourth Earl liked to gamble, and so at one of his late night gambling sessions, he asked his butler to bring him a piece of roast beef, but put it between two pieces of bread so that his cards wouldn't get greasy. I'm going to tell you the truth right now, so get ready. This video includes a paid partnership with BetterHelp. You guys, I used to think that by this stage in life, everything would make sense, and that I'd have clarity, I'd have direction, and maybe even a bit of peace. But honestly, it hasn't quite worked out that way. And some things, yes, definitely turned out better than I imagined, and others, well, not at all how I had planned. And in those quiet moments when, you know, I reflect on that gap between what I expected and what actually is, that's where this mental clutter really starts to creep in. And so for a long time, I told myself therapy was for people going through like big things. But what I realized is that even the small, silent struggles deserve attention, and that I deserve attention. And so talking to a therapist has helped me unpack some of those lingering doubts and like reframe how I see myself and really let go of that idea that somehow I've fallen behind. And that's why I've partnered with BetterHelp. They are on a mission to make starting therapy easier. You just fill out a short questionnaire and then you get matched with a credentialed therapist. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch easily at no extra cost. So with over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, it's a platform that you can trust. So click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/American Countess to get 10% off your first month of therapy. And you don't have to wait for a crisis. Sometimes just feeling a little lost is reason enough to reach out. We believe he was such a great politician and, of course, head of the Admiralty and very, very busy that he was working at his desk all of the time, that sometimes he didn't leave his desk and eat lunch in the dining room or elsewhere. And so he asked his butler to bring him roast beef between 2 pieces of bread so he wouldn't get his papers greasy. And that, you've heard it here first. Now that doesn't mean that he didn't gamble and didn't also, of course, have that sandwich next to him when he was gambling, but we believe that the true story comes from the fact that he didn't want to get his very important papers greasy. And that is where the sandwich that we know today actually comes from. Unfortunately, we didn't trademark that, so yes, that was a real loss. What's extraordinary about these historic houses is that the ones that we see today, we know that they've gone through a lot in order to survive. So during the Second World War, many, and I mean many, historic houses were requisitioned by the government to be used by the government, whether they were prisoner of war camps or they were maternity hospitals or they were Red Cross centers or even refugee camps. But a really good example is Pentilly Castle, which I did visit. Hopefully you've been able to see those 3 episodes of Pentilly Castle in my American Viscountess series on historic houses. But that was requisitioned by the government and it was used as a maternity hospital during the Second World War. And when I went to go visit Sammy Corriton, who now owns and runs Pentilly Castle, she taught me how to do hospital corners because now Pentilly Castle is a wonderful venue that you can rent out for weddings, for any type of events, and Sammy and her family run it. But we had a wonderful scene where Sammy was showing me how to do hospital corners because, of course, that's what they were doing during the Second World War when Pentilly Castle was used for a maternity hospital. After the Second World War, when these homeowners came back to their houses, these historic houses, they found that they were in such a state that they couldn't repair them. They had no money, also because all the taxes that were put on these landowners, these homeowners. You were taxed for the size of your house, you were also taxed for the amount of land that you used, and these homeowners couldn't afford to pay these taxes. They arrived back into their houses and some found that their staircases, their beautiful historic staircases, were chopped up to be used for firewood. Their paintings, Van Dyck's, were used for dartboards. And so many of the houses were either just demolished so that they didn't have to pay taxes, or their land was sold, or they just left them in ruin, or they sold them to become museums, to become schools, to become prisons, believe it or not. And Pentilly is also another example that in the 1960s, 2 huge wings of Pentilly Castle were just completely demolished. But the same thing happened over here. Hinchingbrooke, which is actually my title and was the family home, that is the home that the first Earl of Sandwich lived in all of his life, and all of the other Earls after that, up until my husband's grandfather. He sold Hinchingbrooke. Again, same reason, right after the Second World War, taxes. In fact, he even knocked down a wing. But luckily, Hinchingbrooke did survive. It's now a school, so it's a wonderful school, and that means that all of Hinchingbrooke is still intact as far as the extraordinary architecture around that. After the Second World War, but probably not quite in time, this country set up something around grade 1 and grade 2 listed buildings. Mapperton is a grade 1 listed building. Hinchingbrooke House is a grade 1 listed building, and it means that it's of extraordinary historical interest. So that is what grade 1 means. If you're wondering what grade 2 means, it's of special historical interest. So both Hinchingbrooke and Mapperton are grade 1 listed, which means we cannot bulldoze it down ever, and it also means we actually can't even take out a wall if we want to expand. That's how strict the rules have become in order to preserve this part of England's heritage. So it's actually a good thing. First time I wore a hat was at Hinchingbrooke. It was the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Trafalgar. It was the 21st of October, 1805, and 200 years later, in 2005, I planted a tree at Hinchingbrook because custom goes is that it was always, when trees were to be planted, it was always the lady of the house who would plant the tree. And granted, we weren't living there, but it is called Hinchingbrook House. My title is Viscountess Hinchingbrook, and so I wore a very smart hat, and I was able to plant that tree. So I was able to plant a tree there, and it was really special and a wonderful moment for me. So that was really the first time, almost the last time, that I wore a hat. However, if you watched my recent video where I went to Plymouth and retraced kind of the steps of the Pilgrims and the Mayflower in particular, I was wearing this hat, and this hat actually comes from, we believe, Luke's great-grandmother, Alberta Sturgis, who was the 9th Countess of Sandwich, but also an American like me. She came over during the Gilded Age, just like Downton Abbey, was here during that same period, married in 1905, brought her money, exchanged it for a title, and I'll be doing my dissertation on Alberta Sturgis, but we believe that this was her hat, and I was able to wear it for that video. Many of you watched the video that I did with my husband, how not to set the table. Listen, honestly, it's difficult. It still gets me today. As you can see, we have different opinions on how both my husband and I should lay the table. He thought what I did was an absolute disaster. I thought it was all right. He thought I Googled it. I don't know, I'm gonna keep mum on that one. But I still, again, etiquette at the table, learning how to set the table. It's difficult. It's because setting the table, you have to figure out how many courses you're having, how many just different glasses you need. Are you having cheese? Are you gonna have pudding? Are you gonna have salads? Are you gonna have soups? And these all require different cutlery for sure. So, and actually I should say silverware, because over in this country, your everyday utensils that you eat are called cutlery. Only when you're having a smart dinner and you're actually using silver would it be called silverware, whereas in America, I'm afraid, everything's called silverware. So that's another one. So learning the etiquette, I'm still getting my head around that, but I will end with one faux pas that I had, and that was passing the salt. So somebody at a smart dinner party asked me to pass the salt, and the salt was right there in the middle of the table. I grabbed the salt, stood up, and passed it over to the person across the table, and that was a shh, never do that. So what you have to do is you have to, I believe, pass the salt. Well, it's to the right. So I think it's depending, well, I think it depends on how close that person is. So if the person across from me was, 3 away, but yet 6 away there, I could pass it to the left. But also if all of a sudden it's 3 away here and there were 6 on this side, I would pass it to the right. I think if it's equidistant, you would go to the right. But don't hold me to that. But you cannot pass across the table anything, not just salt, water, wine, whatever it is, gravy. You cannot pass it across the table. You need to pass it one by one. The mistakes, and there have been quite a few that I have made as an American Viscountess. And I'm gonna give you kind of my top 5. When I married into the aristocracy, of course, I was then, I had a title, Viscountess Hinchingbrook. And yes, it is a mouthful. Things kind of changed a little bit as far as how I needed to get really my head around aspects of this sort of new life that I married into. So I'm gonna go through my 5 kind of top mistakes that I made marrying into the aristocracy. Number 1 was how to greet people, as in, I'm a hugger. So as the American, I would, of course, want to just come up and hug everybody. But I soon learned quite quickly that over here, it's really a kiss from one side of the cheek to the other side of the cheek. So I had to stop hugging. Well, hugging as much as I was probably used to, but I did mess it up at the beginning because when you're not used to it and you're just used to sort of enveloping somebody into a big bear hug, I had to get my head around what side of the cheek do I go to first. So I've definitely made a few mistakes where I've nearly put my lips on somebody else's lips because I went to the wrong side. But I've pretty much got it right now, but I should have got it, I should have it right. I've been here long enough. My newfound sort of British friends, they do like to hug now too, so I should say that I've been able to at least pass some of my American hugging onto them as well. Number 2, definitely a big one, and I've made many mistakes, and I probably still do continue to make mistakes here. That is setting the table for a big dinner party. I still have problems with it. But I think as an American, well, at least I have grown up, you kind of use a fork, and that's pretty much about it, unless you're cutting into a piece of meat, but then you would put your knife down and then you would use your fork in your right hand. That's not true over here. Fork is in the left, knife is in the right, and so I had to get used to that. That was a big one. But on top of that, there are a lot more utensils used at a dinner party. So depending on the amount of courses is the amount of forks or knives or spoons and even plates and glasses. And I had to get my head around that you work from the outside in. But I'm gonna tell you something, I still, to this day, very occasionally doubt myself when I'm at a dinner party. And so I wait for a few people to start eating just to make sure I've picked up the right fork. Don't tell anybody that. I think it's because it was something that I didn't grow up with, that it's not second nature. But setting the table and understanding how many courses you have, whether it's a salad, a soup, a starter, a main, a pudding, and then the different wine glasses and the water glasses, oh my goodness. But of course, I really did have to learn how to properly eat with a fork always in my left hand, a knife always in my right. Then when you completely finish your course, you would then put the fork and the knife together with the prongs turning up. So again, I had to get my head around that. I made that mistake and probably still do make that mistake as far as setting the table, still to this day. Number 3. I inherited a title, Viscountess Hinchingbrook, and I really did have to get my head around how to address other people with titles, but also how I was sometimes addressed. I think the easiest way to do it is this. So my title is Viscountess Hinchingbrook. If someone were to write me a letter, they would write the Viscountess Hinchingbrook on the envelope, but on the inside, they would actually address me as Dear Lady Hinchingbrook. Now, I go by Julie, so when you are meeting somebody, they wouldn't address me as Viscountess Hinchingbrook to my face, they would actually address me as Lady Hinchingbrook. If I was being announced, it would be the same as what was written on that envelope. So if I was being announced but not addressed to, it would be Viscountess Hinchingbrook. And then if you're talking to me, well, you would go, if you were talking to me, you would just go by Julie, but you know what I mean? This is the, do you see how confusing that is? I mean, that is unbelievably confusing. That is something that I had to get my head around, and I'll be doing another video on differentiating between how you address a king and a queen, a prince and a princess, a duke and a duchess, marquis and marchioness, earl and countess, viscount and viscountess, baron and baroness in another video. And number 4 is sort of plays alongside dinner etiquette, if you like, understanding when you would speak to somebody on your left and somebody on your right. So if I was hosting the dinner, I could start speaking to somebody on my right or somebody on my left, then everybody else around the table would have to follow as well. So if I start to talk to somebody on my right, imagine that person is then speaking to me and that person is looking to the left. So then the person next to the person I'm speaking to must turn to the right. So you basically follow where the host or hostess start. And then what happens is you have to change. So you usually change when the courses change. I'm speaking to someone to my right, I would then turn around and speak to the person on my left, and everybody else does the same. A big mistake. I've actually been at dinner parties where the person talking to me has said to me, do you know what, I'm gonna have to turn to the person on the other side now. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, so sorry. Because I was chatting away and realizing that I needed to turn as well. Definitely made that mistake, I mean, at least a handful of times. So the last, I think, big mistake that I have made is, I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake, but it was something that I really had to get my head around. And that was really understanding that the way that people over here in Great Britain and people who are who have been studying in one set sort of architectural design describe the rich history and the architecture here in Great Britain is it's actually based on the monarchs of the past. So for example, I'm going to use Mapperton House. It is considered the nation's finest manor house. And when I first arrived, I remember being told that it is a Tudor house, Elizabethan house, Jacobean with a Georgian facade. Now, that went way over my head. I had no idea what they were talking about. But of course, I had to really educate myself quite quickly. But Tudor period is based around in the Tudors, so Henry VI, 7th and 8th, and that's roughly sort of 1485 to 1603. And then Elizabethan is named after Queen Elizabeth I. Then you've got the Stuarts, and it's not referred to so much, but there are some buildings who are obviously Stuarts, and that is Charles I and Charles II. And then of course you've got Jacobean, and that's the one that really confused me because I'm like, Jacobean, but that is James I. So that is after Elizabeth I, that's James I. And then moving on, you've got Queen Anne, and you'll hear a lot about, in particular, Queen Anne furniture even as well. This also goes to furniture as well. Then of course you've got Georgian furniture or Georgian architecture, and that's 1740 roughly to about 1837. Then Victorian. So you've got the named after, of course, Queen Victorian. Oh, I should back up. So Georgian is, of course, named after King George I, II, and III. Queen Victoria is obviously the Victorian period, and then you've got the Edwardian period, which is actually quite short. Edwardian is like 1901 to 1910, but again, that is Edward VII. So I think I've kind of covered that, but you can imagine I made some major faux pas on describing the architecture periods of different houses when I first arrived here, and really understanding the look of them to be able to look at them now and pretty much know which one is Tudor, what might be Elizabethan, what is Georgian. Georgian's pretty easy to now figure out. I mean, I'm saying that now, but I've been here a while. Victorian and Edwardian. I'm also doing my master's in country house studies, and one of the main purposes of me doing that master's is to make sure that I'm really understanding this architecture of these historic houses, because Britain is full of them. You know, this is the country that has more historic houses than I think any other country in the world. And being able to look at a house, whether it's the windows or the facade, of course, the stone, the architecture, the design, the carvings, and decide what period it comes from. So those are my top mistakes, top 5 mistakes that I have made when I married into the aristocracy. Hello. Hi everybody, and welcome back. If you haven't been here before, I'm Julie Montague, sometimes otherwise known as Viscountess Hinchingbrook. Yes, technically I am a lady. I have married into the British aristocracy, but I really just go by Julie. So you're probably wondering what I'm doing carrying this very heavy tray. What we're gonna be doing today
or I'm gonna be doing, and you'll be watching and hopefully commenting down below whatever I get wrong and maybe whatever I get right, is I'm setting the dinner table for my husband and I. So we're here in the dining room here at Mapperton House. So Mapperton is considered the nation's finest manor house. Mapperton is 16th, 17th, and 18th century. I think we're in, I'm pretty sure, oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure that we're in the 18th century part of the house. There's so many different parts, but I'm pretty sure we're in the 18th century part of the house. Right, Stephen? Claire? They're like... So we usually do set the table together a lot of times, and I always will mess it up. But tonight, I said to him, I'm actually gonna set the table by myself, and you're going to come in and see if I've done it right. Now, he is a real stickler on things in a kind, nice way, but I said, you know, it's okay. I'm happy with constructive criticism. I still need to get this right. So one of the things, again, we do here is we put out sort of, I guess, placemats. I don't know what they're technically called. I call them placemats. That's probably wrong. Stephen, Claire, placemats? Oh, spot on. And in here, you can see we've got a lot of linen for our napkins, and I'm just gonna take a couple of these. So is that one? Yeah, that's a big one. And I'll take this one. Two. Yeah, okay, two. All right, we'll take those. So first things first, I'm gonna lay that here. And I mean, I could have my husband all the way across from me, but I think that that would just be a bit odd. So I'm gonna have him, I can sit at the head of the table and he can sit next to me there. We have a pantry where all of our cutlery and things like that are stored. I hope I got it right, but I'm not sure if I did get all the plates that I need. I'm gonna be having soup, I'm gonna be having salad, I'm gonna be having a starter as well. So first I'm gonna put the main, so this is for the main. So the main is here. Next, I believe, look at me, I'm like, I think, this will be the starter. So this will be the starter. And these plates are a little bit worn, but they've been in the family for like hundreds of years, so some of the gold has come off. So it, you know, it adds a little bit of texture and character to the plates. Oh, and there goes the clock. There we go. 3, 4, 5. So plenty of time to get this ready, because then I have to go cook. Right. Then we are having soup. So I think I put this down, like the soup base. And here. Now the other thing is that obviously I'm gonna have to take all this away to then serve the food on. But this is how you have to lay the table first. So you lay it first. I'm pretty sure these are salad plates. So these go there, I think. Now that, because then I have to put, so I think they go there, oh dear. Or maybe they're, are they salad plates? Are they cheese plates? Right, so I think we can put like salad and bread and butter on here. That's what I'm gonna do. But I have a feeling it goes to the side now. Okay, wait, so this might go here. So salad, bread and butter, the cutlery, or we would say silverware in America, but well, actually this is silverware because they're using silver. So here's the small fork, and that's going to be for my starter. And I did learn that you work from the outside in. So starter, then it will be the bigger fork, which will be used for the main, followed by a knife for the starter, followed by a bigger knife for the main. And I think I have a choice on this spoon. I can put it here for the pudding, or I can put it here. So I'm gonna put it here. No, I think I put it there. I think that's how he does it. Oh. Okay, so this is off. Maybe this should, I think that this should be angled, maybe. Oh, I brought out 2 other small forks, because I think sometimes you need fork and spoon for pudding. So, okay, I've changed my mind. So I'm gonna go here, 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 and here. So that's pudding. but sometimes I think you need both. Then the napkins, you can make them like fancy. I don't really know how to make them fancy, so I think you just put them on top, I think, possibly. Well, that's what I would do. Okay, then we have glasses. So we have white, red, and then water glass. All right, so the water glasses, so I think it's everything, all glasses to the right. So to the right, so I think it goes water first, then red, and then white. And I think it all needs to be in a line as well. So water, red, white. Now, that actually looks really good to me. I mean, I would be super happy if somebody said that, but I know it's supposed to be one thumb at the end. So I have to move everything down now. So I have to move literally everything down. So that I have to do it myself. Right, so now I'm gonna go get my husband and see what he thinks. Stay tuned to see what my husband thinks of my dinner table arrangement. Oh dear. So I've just told my husband, kindly asked him to come in and check it out. I think I've done a really good job. What do you think? This is good because, you know, as we normally set together, which is great, you kind of do all this stuff and I haven't really learned. So I was able to set it by myself for our dinner tonight.
I think Julie's been on Google and she's looked up how to set a table.
No.
And because this is what it comes out with.
That's not true.
It's true.
No.
It's absolutely true.
No, I knew how to do
this. This is
perfect.
We would never set our table like this, ever. I mean, there are some things that are okay.
I did not.
There are some things that are okay, but
I knew how to do. What did I Google? What would I Google?
Well, first of all,
I got very confused with things like where to put this. I put it to the side.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay,
so
wait,
the first thing is that the distance is about right. So that's okay. So it's
Can you say that again?
It's about an inch from the table. These are really horrible glasses, by the way, from the cafe. So she hasn't even brought out the nice glasses. But that doesn't matter.
They were in the kitchen.
Well, I know. But it's all right.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Okay.
The napkin.
But did I do the glasses right?
Would have a fold. So let's just start this again. Sorry, we're just going to dismantle pretty much everything here. Personally, I think that a lot of fuss is made about table laying, and I think, yes, there is a right way to do it for some people, but I think the right way is also the way that kind of feels right to you, which is a mix of tradition, so different families have laid it in different ways, and the sort of rules that people apply. So yes, you start eating from the outside, so whichever your first course is would be from the outside.
Oh, so I've messed that up, that knife.
So assuming that we're having a main course.
No.
First.
I was having a starter. So I did starter, but I've messed this up. I have messed that up.
Right.
So I have. That is a mess up, the knives.
Okay, but what is the starter? Because again, it depends what we're eating.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I was going to surprise you.
Okay, well, let's say it was soup.
No, I have a soup as well. I was going to do soup, starter, main.
Okay, well, so so anyway, you've got your pudding spoons at the top. Is that right?
Yeah.
And those would be twisted around, so that wouldn't be right.
Okay.
And I think you'd normally start with soup, so you'd have a soup spoon on the outside. We would normally lay this. I mean, forget the kind of etiquette nonsense. The way we would normally lay a table in our house would be to have because we normally have a first course that might be soup, in which case there'd be a soup spoon there. Okay. Otherwise, you'd have your main course, which is this one here, and then usually we would actually have the pudding spoon there, which would go with the pudding fork on that side.
Where's the pudding fork?
And then over here on the left-hand side, we would have the side plate, except that's not quite a side plate because you haven't brought the right one out. And we might have, we might have the side plate with the knife sitting there. Alternatively, which is what I think you were doing here. By the way, this is a really ugly knife. I don't know where you got that one. But we might put the salad plate at the front there.
It was a salad plate. Okay.
Yeah. So that could be there. And then critically, the thing you really got wrong was the napkin sitting on top of the pot. I mean, that, What is that?
That's the soup bowl.
No, this is you sort of building a house, you know, with a sort of roof on the top.
Okay, okay.
That was just, I don't know where you got that from. Google, I suspect. So we're back.
I saw it somewhere.
And
maybe
we
it
probably
was
we wouldn't
Google.
use that
Maybe
as
it was
we wouldn't
Google.
use that as that might be a consommé bowl or something, but it wouldn't be a soup bowl. So we'll get rid of that one as well.
But I'm serving soup tonight.
Well, I know we do that in a bigger soup bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, not that. And then the critical thing though is the napkin. Now,
Okay.
either you would make your napkin into a particular napkin shape, and there are various different types.
Do you know how to do that?
I used to, but I haven't done it for a while.
Okay, have a go while I go get.
But it is true.
Another...
When I grew up here, my grandfather had a butler who would make nice shapes, and the typical one was something like that, and it would sort of sit there at the front.
Yeah, can you
looks
not
a
do
little
that?
bit like the sort of a bishop's hat.
Can you not do that?
And I can't remember to do that. But anyway, otherwise, what we normally do now in these more relaxed times is we would put the napkin on the side plate, and we might have the knife on the top like that. Right. Glasses, yeah, so you'd have the water glass up the front. Normally you're red there, I think, and you're
Yeah, I did.
white there, but
I thought that was red.
that's probably what Google told you.
No, stop it.
Anyway,
terrible.
it's something like this, but
Okay.
we don't get too fussed about it because at the end of the day,
okay.
it doesn't really matter
Okay.
very much.
But wait,
It's just...
I know, but I want to.
You want to get it
because
right.
you know this
I know,
stuff.
but
You said that there's something goes here. So
No.
you've got.
No,
if
no,
we're
I'm
just
very
gonna
happy
have a
with that.
main
By the way,
course.
I don't particularly like these mats. We've got nicer mats here.
No,
Unless they've been taken
They've been taken
by my parents.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're,
dear.
they're gone.
They're
I
gone, are
looked.
they? Right, okay.
So I'm gonna have my main course here. This is pudding.
Yeah, that would be pudding because you've
Then
eaten
what am I gonna
with
eat with my
these.
salad?
Well, you just, you're eating here and you've got your knife and fork and you're delving a bit in there and a bit in there and
And this is my
it's all
butter
working
knife.
fine.
So I don't need another knife.
But you've left out, where's salt and pepper? And,
No, I haven't done.
and
No.
wine coasters and all sorts of other things we might have on the table, candlesticks and anyway.
Well, okay.
It's going to be a great dinner. What are we eating, by the way? Soup. That's
You're
right.
not invited.
I'm not invited.
He's not
I think
invited
I'm going to
anymore.
exit at this point
terrible.
and I'll leave you to think about all the things I've said and reflect on whether I've helped or hindered.
He's
Bye.
out. He's out. He's out. Anyway, I liked what I did. Actually, you know what? Forget it. I'm actually going to go get a takeaway. And for those of you in America, that's a to-go.